The timelines converge on that point in time. In an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time. All the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the looking glass inherently ended up in the same future. That's the big secret.
Millions of people remember certain events that never happened. And so how do you explain that?
Now pay attention, because what you're about to see changes everything. There are documents, studies, and strange patterns that many people have noticed, things that feel real but are hard to explain. Something happened around 1999, and it might explain why so many of us feel like time is speeding up, why everything looks the same, sounds the same, and feels strangely artificial.
We might have the sense that we're rerunning the same scene, we're saying the same things, but something could be different, and usually something is different.
So what is actually happening, and how come no one's talking about it? Let's start here. In the decades leading up to the year 2000, culture evolved at breakneck speed. Each era felt completely different from the one before. The 60s brought psychedelic rebellion and a hunger for change. The 70s gave us raw punk, vibrant disco, and a growing distrust in authority. The 80s exploded with loud fashion, fast tech, and a love for everything big and bold. In the 90s, a strange blend of digital optimism and quiet anxiety about what was coming next. But after 1999, everything flatlined. There is no clear 2000s aesthetic, no truly new movements. Music started recycling itself, fashion started looping, even technology plateaued. Sure, phones got smarter, but nothing feels revolutionary. It's like we entered a time loop or a simulation where everything looks the same, sounds the same, and never really changes. And this isn't just a feeling. Psychologists have studied the chronostasis effect, the feeling that time is accelerating as we age. But the current phenomenon affects everyone, not just older people. Young people feel it too. Teenagers say 2018 feels like it was yesterday. Why? Because something shifted. Some researchers tied to the rise of the internet, mass data manipulation, and the beginning of algorithmic control over human perception. And this is just the beginning. Because if time itself feels fake, maybe reality isn't what it used to be either. Stay with me, because what comes next connects government programs, lost time, and a theory so insane it might actually be true. So if everything started to feel off after 1999, what actually happened around that time? Let's start with Y2K. In the final months of 1999, there was a global concern that computer systems would fail when the date switched to the year 2000. All the software used only 2 digits to record years, so 2 nils might be read as 1900, potentially disrupting banks,
credit cards, and ATMs may cease to function.
Power grids, airlines,
Airplanes and trains may come to a halt.
governments and corporations spent over $300 billion updating systems. It was one of the largest coordinated tech efforts in history. People stocked food, withdrew cash, and prepared for the worst. But when midnight came, almost nothing happened. The systems held, the world moved on. Still, that global moment left an imprint. Some view it as a psychological turning point, the end of the analog age and the quiet beginning of a fully digital world. From that point on, life accelerated. Culture, communication, and consciousness shifted onto screens, fast, constant, and increasingly disconnected from physical time. Some researchers believe Y2K wasn't about a bug at all, but a kind of global psychological reset, a ritual of fear, distraction, and silence. The code may not have crashed, but something else may have been triggered. Our perception of time and reality. After something strange started happening online, people began noticing memories that didn't match reality. The most famous? The Berenstain Bears. Millions remember it as Berenstain with an E, but every book says Berenstain with an A, and that's just the beginning.
If you're running a simulation and you go back and you change some variables and you rerun the simulation, lots of little things could be different along the way, right? You have many different possible paths.
You have glitches in the matrix.
Exactly. You're now on this timeline, but you remember. You have like a deja vu, or you have like a weird memory.
Movie quotes, logos, product names, all different than we remember. Entire groups of people swearing something changed with no explanation. It became known as the Mandela Effect, named after people who remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison years before he actually did. What could cause something like this?
Are you familiar with the Mandela effect? Yeah. Of
course.
Millions of people remember certain events that never happened. And so how do you explain that? As we go through our conscious progression, as we raise consciousness, the way we perceive the world, and therefore all that will exist in our world, will morph to that new resonance as a sympathetic resonance. So certain aspects of the old world will just no longer exist. And so we can still have a phantom memory of those experiences, whether it's like Jiffy peanut butter or Luke, I am your father, which he never said that, right? All these things like that literally just like fall out of your new frequency. Because everything in your world around you, including time itself, is retrocausal. The world around you that is no longer fitting your frequency will disintegrate and dissolve.
And this is where things take a turn. Because according to Bill Wood, a former Navy SEAL with high-level clearance, the US military once had access to a device called Project Looking Glass, a technology that could supposedly view potential future timelines.
The project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. The timelines converge on that point in time. When you know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make.
Okay, so is that certainly 2012 in your understanding?
It's well coincides with December 21st, 2012.
So at that point, all possibilities lead to the same
Timelines.
Rubicon.
All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future.
And after that, they shut it all down. Now ask yourself, why would a system like that be buried, and what exactly did they see? Because this isn't just about false memories or tech. It might explain why everything since 1999 feels frozen and artificial, like we're on rails in a version of reality that wasn't meant to last this long. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear what else Looking Glass may have revealed. So what exactly did they see with Looking Glass? According to multiple whistleblowers, including Bill Wood and other interviewed by Project Camelot, every time they ran the device, no matter what variables they changed, all future timelines converged to a single fixed point. That point, somewhere between 2012 and 2016. After that, the future became unpredictable. No more branching outcomes, just a wall. Now here's where things get even more interesting. 2012 wasn't just the year everyone joked about the Mayan apocalypse. It was also a year packed with quiet shifts, massive spikes in social unrest, the first viral wave of fake news, and most importantly, a rise of algorithmic feeds where machines began shaping what billions of people saw each day. Some theorists believe that Convergence Point wasn't a literal end, but a collapse of free potential. A moment when human behavior became so predictable that machines, social platforms, surveillance systems, predictive models could simulate us entirely. A world running on autoplay. And suddenly, that feeling you've had, like nothing's really new anymore, starts to make sense. Because if time is no longer open, if we're just living out one locked path, it would explain the déjà vu, the cultural repetition, and why history feels like it's just spinning in place. Even historian Francis Fukuyama wrote about this idea in the early 90s. He called it the end of history, a moment where progress would flatten and would just repeat the same political and cultural cycles. That theory was mocked back then, but now, more people are starting to ask, what if he was right? And what if this timeline we're stuck in was never supposed to happen at all? So what exactly did Project Looking Glass reveal, and why was it quietly shut down? The people involved began noticing something strange. No matter what variables they used, the results kept showing the same future, a point where all possible timelines seemed to merge. That moment, somewhere between 2012 and 2016. After that, everything became unclear, like the future couldn't be read anymore. This brings us back to 1999. a year that might have marked more than just the turn of a century. It's also when The Matrix was released. At the time, it was seen as just another sci-fi movie, but looking back, it feels like something more.
You've been living in a dream world, Neo.
The film introduced a powerful idea, that the world we experience might not be what it seems, that reality could be shaped or even simulated without us knowing. And once you start asking questions, things begin to change. That idea resonates deeply with what many have felt since the early 2000s. The time feels different, that the future doesn't feel open the way it once did. Almost like things are repeating themselves, the same cycles, the same events, showing up again and again. Some people even report seeing repeating numbers everywhere, like 1111, 222, 444, almost like little glitches or signals hidden in everyday life. Anyway, these synchronicities are another topic we'll explore in a future video. Quick side note, if you're into numerology, I recommend trying a numerology reading on this website. It's really interesting and it's free. I was skeptical before trying it, but it was surprisingly accurate, and honestly, it explained a few patterns I hadn't been able to make sense of before. I'll leave a link in the description below. And strangely enough, this idea of patterns repeating, of cycles you can't escape, lines up with what Looking Glass operators allegedly encountered. The sensation that the future was already written and that all paths lead to the same outcome. Fast forward to 2012, some whistleblowers claim that a confidential briefing took place where certain agencies acknowledged the shift, a kind of convergence in human potential. This document, released by the CIA, explores consciousness as something that can move through time, even outside of the physical world. It discusses remote viewing, timelines, and the nature of reality itself. Now, connect that to The Matrix, and the overlap becomes hard to ignore. Maybe it wasn't just a movie, maybe it was the first time the system gave us a glimpse behind the curtain. And if that's the case, what else have we been shown without realizing it? So let's go a level deeper. Because even if technologies like Project Looking Glass were real, very few people would have ever had access to the full picture. Why? Because of compartmentalization. Inside military and intelligence programs, information is split into layers. People only see what they need to know. Even high-level operatives are often given just a piece of a much larger puzzle. So when whistleblowers speak out, they're often describing small fragments of a system they never fully understood, but the patterns are there. Take the CIA's Stargate project, for example. For over 20 years, the US government ran classified programs to test remote viewing, a method of seeing distant places, people, and even future events using only the mind.
We were asked to find a downed Russian airplane with an atomic bomb on it. Joe McMoneagle described what was going on in a Russian building. He described the construction of an enormous submarine, a 500-foot submarine. And people laughed at us. They said, there's never been this 3 times bigger than any submarine in the world. And within 6 months, the Russians rolled out the biggest submarine in the world. And Joe was the first person to describe that, which he did very accurately.
This isn't fiction. Declassified documents confirm it. Remote viewing was tested, documented, and at times highly accurate. Now here's where it gets interesting. Some of those same remote viewers reported strange visions tied to the future. Visions of a break in the timeline or an event horizon. Something big that would change how human consciousness functions. And many of those visions clustered around 2012. They described a sense of things flattening, of time behaving differently, and a feeling that humanity would shift into a new kind of experience, one that wasn't fully physical. So now we have Looking Glass operators, remote viewers, whistleblowers, and even films like The Matrix, all pointing towards the same idea, that time isn't just moving forward anymore, it's looping, compressing, or being managed. All of this leads us to the holographic universe theory. This idea, proposed by physicists like Gerard 't Hooft and Leonard Susskind, suggests that everything we experience in 3D reality could actually be encoded on a 2D surface like a cosmic projection. In other words, reality might be a kind of simulation, not in the sci-fi sense of computers and code, but as a structure built from vibrations, frequencies, and information.
Computing power is growing rapidly. We create simulations of worlds. We have video games with characters that are inside the video game. Imagine a day where you can simulate a world so perfectly with life forms, humans, so well that you can recreate every single neurosynaptic thought you could have, but now you're in the simulation on the computer.
Now combine that with something else. The end of the Mayan calendar in 2012. Many thought it predicted an apocalypse, but what if it marked something different? A transition, a shift in how we experience time, space, or consciousness. Not a physical destruction, but a realignment. A timeline switch we didn't even notice. And this brings us to the Higgs boson, often called the God particle. When scientists at CERN confirmed its existence in 2012, was celebrated. But some theorists, including Dr. Joseph Lycan at Fermilab, pointed out something fascinating. The Higgs field could, in theory, cause a quantum collapse of reality. Not immediately, but over time.
So how will that happen? Well, the way that would happen would be that at some point, somewhere, spontaneously out of the vacuum of space, in between galaxies somewhere, just through some funny little quantum fluctuation, there'll be a little bubble that will form. And that little bubble will be living in, with the Higgs field turned on to a higher value, and that will be a lower energy state than the ordinary vacuum that surrounds it. And so the bubble will expand, and it will expand at the speed of light, and it will keep doing that, and nothing will stop it until it completely wipes out everything that's already here, and we will enter a new era for our universe.
Again, this isn't about fear, it's about possibility. Maybe time feels strange because we're somewhere new, not in danger, just out of sync. And that might explain why the world feels like it's almost the same, but just different enough to notice. So if that's true, if something really did shift, then the next question is, what are we actually experiencing right now? Let me walk you through a few theories that might explain it. Some researchers from the world of new physics, like Nassim Haramein, suggest that Earth itself is changing. Specifically, they point to the Schumann resonance, a natural frequency produced by electromagnetic waves in Earth's atmosphere. For decades, it held steady around 7.83 Hz, but in recent years, it's shown surprising spikes, sometimes reaching over 30 Hz. The theory? As this frequency increases, it may be affecting how we perceive time. People report time moving faster, days blurring together, and less memory of simple daily moments. It's speculative but fascinating because it connects human consciousness directly to Earth's vibrations. Then there's the concept of parallel realities and timeline shift. The idea that instead of one single linear timeline, there may be multiple versions of reality, and sometimes we cross between them. This is often brought up in conversations around the Mandela effect, collective false memories that defy logic. Why do so many people remember the Berenstain Bears when all the books say Berenstain with an A? And that's where CERN enters the picture again. In 2016, during one of CERN's high-energy runs, a strange anomaly was recorded, an unexpected signal in the data. At the same time, people online began reporting bizarre experiences, glitches in memory, and a collective feeling that something had shifted.
So what the kid winds up with is this theory of like one atom weighing too much and is that being just enough to shift our universe.
Look at what it says there. He claims that CERN destroyed the universe during recent experiments, which has resulted in us living in a nearby parallel universe instead.
It sparked discussion about whether these experiments could be interacting with space-time or even nudging us between timelines. Of course, there's no confirmation of that. But what's clear is this. More and more people feel like time doesn't behave the way it used to. And that brings us to the final question. Why does time feel so fast now, when it didn't before? So let's bring this back to something simple. Everyday life. Because even without theories or timelines, most people agree on one thing. Time feels faster now. And there's a reason for that. Neuroscientists have found that our experience of time is shaped by how much attention we give to the present moment. When we're young, everything is new. New experiences, new people, new emotions. That novelty slows time down. The brain processes more information, builds more memories, and stretches time as a result. But as we age, and especially in modern life, routines take over. Wake up, check your phone, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. Fewer new experiences means fewer memory bookmarks. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, because nothing stands out. This is called temporal compression, and it's one of the most researched explanations for why time feels like it's speeding up. And now, add algorithms to that. Every scroll on social media is engineered to keep your brain in a loop, not of learning, but of repetition. Same types of videos, same stories, same emotions.
These days it feels like little bits of my time kind of slip away from me. And when that happens, it feels like parts of my life are slipping away. Specifically, it feels like little bits of my time get it slipped away to various things like this, like technology, I check things. If this email shows up, I've been tagged in a photo. When this appears, I can't help but click on it right now, right? Because like, what if it's a bad photo? So I have to click it right now. I'm not just gonna click see photo, what I'm actually gonna do is spend the next 20 minutes. The worst part is that I know that this is what's gonna happen, and even knowing that that's what's gonna happen doesn't stop me from doing it again the next time.
So if you feel like you blink and months are gone, you're not imagining it. You're just living in a system that trains you not to notice time passing. Then there's the digital memory problem. We don't store memories the way we used to. Photos are endless but meaningless. Notifications pull us out of the present before it even registers. We remember less because we attend less. And without memory, there is no sense of time. None of this requires a glitch in the matrix or a simulation theory, though those ideas are still worth exploring. But even in the real, grounded world, our experience of time has changed, driven by repetition, distraction, and the speed of modern life. So maybe the world didn't end in 1999. Maybe we just stopped noticing it the way we used to. If this video made you think, let me know in the comments below. Have you felt time speeding up? Have you noticed anything strange since 1999? Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more deep dives like this. We've got more videos coming on synchronicities, timelines, and everything in between. And hey, if you know someone who'd find this interesting, share it with them. You never know who might need to hear it.